There we go. Thank you so much for the reminder. So yeah, I guess without further ado, we'll get started. And wanted to sort of start with some background on our organization and the geographic area and the people that we serve. So the Mystic River Watershed Association, we are a nonprofit organization that's focused on the Mystic River watershed. The Mystic River being one of three major rivers that drains into Boston Harbor. So, for those of you who aren't aware, we're located in sort of cities and towns that are generally north-ish of Boston, and we connect 21 different municipalities from Reading all the way in the north, and then it drains out near Winthrop and Revere. And a watershed is the area in which, when it rains, all of that water will drain ultimately to a single body of water. So for us, that's the Mystic River. We have a lot of different smaller streams and rivers and lakes and ponds. We have the Mystic Lakes, which are in Medford and Arlington and Winchester. We have Chelsea Creek, the Malden River are all part of our watershed, all drain into the Mystic River. And it's 76 square miles, which is an area that's roughly the size of Brooklyn, New York, but we have 21 different communities that are in our watershed. And so a lot of our work focuses on working across municipal boundaries to build solutions to make sure that people and the water stay healthy and clean. And we serve 600,000, oh, I think over 600,000 people now in our watershed, and it is the most urban watershed in New England. And so with that comes unique challenges that face urban watersheds. And so, yeah, that's a little bit about sort of our geographic area. Um, and just wanted to give sort of a little overview. Sorry, this is a little bit of a text-heavy slide, but of our work as an organization. So we work to build solutions so that all people across our watershed, no matter who you are or where you live, have safe and easy access to nature and a healthy environment. We're an organization that is rooted in science and an understanding of environmental injustices. And we believe that access to information and opportunities to learn about the natural world empower us to all work together for a better future in the Mystic. And then just to get into some more details, we have 20 full-time staff. We have a 17-member executive board who helps direct our organization. And then we also work with countless volunteers and advisors and community leaders, and also other partner organizations to advance our work. And so our work is really dynamic. We do a lot in community, and wanted to highlight that in all of our programs and projects, MIRA, which is our acronym, works to support and uphold the residents that are most affected by climate change, pollution, and other environmental injustices as leaders in the development of solutions. So those are sort of the mission and vision that we're guided with. And I've put some of our sort of key program areas as well, and ways that we sort of work to affect this change. So we have an education program where we work in classrooms, and we do after school programs and summer programs, teaching students about water and water quality issues and watersheds and wildlife. We work on environmental stewardship. A lot of our volunteer opportunities are around stewardship. So things like removing invasive plants. We also do trash cleanups and work on restoring wetlands. So there's a lot of work that we do thinking about ecosystems and the environment and how we can be good stewards of the land that drains into the river. We have a water quality program and a green infrastructure program. We have a long-term water quality monitoring program, which is another one of our big volunteer opportunities. And then we also do a lot of work to improve water quality. And a lot of that looks like working on green infrastructure projects and working with cities and towns to implement solutions. We have a tree program where we work on tree planting, and we also work on air quality. These are two relatively new programs that we're working on, thinking about environmental threats that residents are facing. We do a lot of work around parks and greenways. Our vision is ultimately to connect over 25 miles of interconnected greenways along the Mystic River and its tributaries. And so we have a variety of projects that we're working on that are sort of reinvigorating parks and making sure that there is green, open, outdoor space for people to enjoy and congregate and get the benefits of. And then we do a lot of work on climate resilience, whether that's focusing on public health, looking at extreme heat, looking at the impacts of flooding. We are sort of responding to the challenges of climate change and working with municipalities to find solutions. So that's sort of general background on our work. And maybe I'll actually pause here really quickly if anyone has any questions around just our organization in general. And if folks have questions that they want to put in the chat as I go through, please feel free. I'm not seeing anything, and we'll have another opportunity for questions at the end. So I think I'm just going to keep going. Um, so a little bit of background on this particular program that we are piloting this year. So the Mystic River Artist in Residence program for us is an opportunity to emphasize the vital connection between the arts and the environment. And what we're really hoping to accomplish with this program is to bring onto our staff a creative strategist, a creative practitioner who can help us increase our community engagement, deepen our relationships with the communities that we serve, and highlight those diverse communities in the Mystic River watershed and how those communities intersect with our work. And I think we really see art as an opportunity to continue to build bridges and to build bridges with communities in unique ways. And so we're really excited to be working on this. And then also wanted to mention that this Artist in Residence program is part of a larger national pilot Artist in Residence program that is being organized by the EPA. And that is where the funding from this program is coming from. So it's a partnership with the National Endowment for the Arts. And there are 6 locations throughout the country that are also putting on parallel programs through this larger EPA program. And those are all locations that are part of the National Estuary Program and the Urban Waters Federal Partnership. Do other Myra folks have anything to add about that? Feeling good? All right. So that's sort of general background on the impetus behind this program and sort of how it came to be and what we're hoping to accomplish with it. And wanted to dive a little bit deeper into how this program is going to be structured. So it's going to be a 2-part program. The first part is going to be an onboarding and exploratory phase. And this would ideally start in January and conclude in April of 2025. And the idea for this section of the residency is that I think ultimately what we're hoping to have from this program is the opportunity to co-create a project with the artists that we bring on board. And so I think we encourage everyone to come with unique visions and with ideas and with things that they want to contribute. But I think we also have the expectation that we would be creating something together that would be based on learning that we would do during this onboarding and exploratory phase. And I think it would be sort of us as Mystic River Watershed Association learning about the artist's artistic practice and the experience and the skills and the vision that they bring, but then also them learning about the work that we do and having the opportunity to connect with residents, connect with our staff, attend meetings, and learn through being a part of our organization. And so for the onboarding and exploratory phase, we've budgeted $25,000 for around 20 hours a week. There's a little bit of flexibility there, and I think that that's something that we would talk through with the artist after we had selected them. But the hope would be that during this time, there would be sort of learning and onboarding and exploring within our organization, some initial community engagement, connecting with community members, learning about our project areas, and figuring out what component of our work is most interesting to you. But then I would conclude with a project proposal um, that would be carried out in the following 8 to 10 month implementation phase. Um, and so, yeah, after the 4 month onboarding, starting in April or May, we would have an 8 to 10 month project implementation where we would work with the artist to implement a creative project that was generated during the exploratory phase. And we have $115,000 budgeted for this, and that would cover all of the project costs. So it would cover a stipend for the artist, of course, but would also cover materials, it would cover transportation. And I think during the onboarding and exploratory phase, we would sort of allocate that budget and make a plan for how to spend that money. And wanted to sort of reemphasize again that our vision for this project is that it would include community engagement, and that the whatever sort of creative output that would come from this would be one that was had community involvement and that engaged the community. And I think the other thing that I'll mention is that we've sort of kept that number for the implementation phase, the ultimate lump sum, with the sense that we'll probably get a variety of proposals, and didn't want to hem anyone in with specific allocation of that funding. And so I think there's some flexibility there for the type of project that the artists that we work with and that we sort of develop together, for how that money would be allocated. But I think, of course, we would expect that any artist that we work with would be paid a living wage that is commensurate to the amount of work and the scope of the project that's developed. So that's sort of the overall structure of the program. Um, and then wanted to give some background on what we're looking for as you put together your applications, or as you spread the word to other folks in your network, if that's something that you're interested in doing. So we're looking, one, for someone who's eligible to work in the United States and is able to commit to the full duration of the program, which ultimately would be from January of 2025 until April of 2026. We're looking for someone who's experienced in community engagement as part of their artistic process. We are looking for someone who has an interest in our work, some component of what we do, whether it's the parks and paths and the greenways and that sort of infrastructure component, whether it's water quality, whether it's access to the outdoors, outdoor education, working across boundaries to make a difference in your community. We're just looking for some sort of demonstrated interest in the work that we do as an organization, and I think a sort of good overlap of vision between us and the artists that we work with. One of the things from the RFQ is this statement of being able to independently travel within the watershed. I think we didn't want to explicitly say you need to have a car, because you can get many places in the watershed on public transportation, but we do want someone who's able to comfortably be able to travel within the watershed, because it's important for folks to get to know the geographic area that we're serving. And I'll just say for myself, I am someone who does not have a car, and I work for this organization, and I'm able to get all the places that I need, but we just wanted to make sure that it was understood that that was an expectation. And then we're looking for someone who's experienced with managing budgets and implementing creative projects. I think this is Um, because there's a co-creation component to this particular project, we're looking for someone who is able to comfortably go through that process with us, and be able to sort of self-direct some of their own work, yeah, for this particular program. And then also wanted to emphasize that we are open to all forms of art. I would say that as long as whatever your sort of artistic medium is, or whatever your expertise is, as long as it sort of fulfills those goals of being community engaged, connecting people to our watershed, engaging with our issues, then we're really open. And we encourage artists of all mediums to apply, whether it's literary or visual or musical, auditory. I think we're trying to cast a broad net, and we're really looking for goal over medium. So that is who we're looking for. And then I have one more slide for you all, which is before we get to the questions, which is just an FAQ. So we've been getting some emails from folks, which is great. Thank you so much for reaching out. And if folks continue to have questions, you're more than welcome to continue to email me. And I think it's my email address that's on the RFQ. I can put it in the chat when we get to the questions section. But these are some things that have come up as folks have been emailing, and so um, wanted to cover these things. So the first one is this program open to all artistic mediums? And I think, as I just said, definitely, and we encourage folks of all mediums to apply. One question that we've gotten is whether there's any flexibility on the time frame. So what we're looking at here is the application deadline is October 9th, and then we would have a round of finalist interviews. I think it was early November that we were looking at for that, and would have the selection done, well, hopefully by December. So it's sort of looking at the fall, before the holidays, for the artist selection. And then would be January to April of 2025 for the onboarding. And then kind of April, I think I might have said April before, but I think it's looking more like it's like April to March, or May to March of 2025 into 2026 for the implementation phase. And I would say in terms of flexibility, there is some flexibility. And I think at this stage, I would definitely, if you have concerns about the timeline, I would definitely still encourage you to apply, unless it's something absolutely major, like, oh, I could not do this until 2026, then we might have a problem. But if it's maybe I could use an extra month before starting the onboarding, so I could onboard in February as opposed to January, or I might not be able to go all the way until March of 2026. I would say definitely still apply and indicate those things. And I think, I guess maybe what I wanted to say around that is it is something that we'll take into account as we're looking through the applications. But if we see a really exciting project where there's sort of small concerns about time frame flexibility, we definitely are not counting people out because of that. So that is sort of our general answer to that question. Um, this question around sort of a specific amount being allocated to an artist stipend for the implementation phase and how payment works in the different phases. I think I addressed that a little bit before, but right now there is no specific stipend, no sort of set amount that we are allocating for what the artists will be paid for their sort of time and their work during the implementation phase. That is something I think that would come out of the onboarding phase, is a way to budget for the artist stipend that would feel fair. And I think um, yeah, so it's something that we would work through together, but there is not an exact stipend for the implementation phase at this stage in the process. And actually, maybe Shelley, I might defer to you for how does payment work for the different phases. I think that may be something that we're still figuring out.
Right. So again, I think the 4 month phase, the onboarding phase, as Isaiah said, it's, we're paying for your time to engage with the community. And I think again, we would work with you as individual artists to figure out what that would be best. If it's, best if you wanted it, like a employee where you got it twice a month. If it was monthly, again, we would look at you would not be an employee. You would be a contractor, but then kind of we would be happy to negotiate when that needed to be paid. And again, for implementation, I think Isaiah explained this really well. We're going to come up with the implementation plan, together, and then a part of that would be, yes, how are you paying yourself? Doing some art, all that good piece.
And then one last question that had come up a couple of times is, so we indicated on the RFQ that there's a limit to artist teams of two. And we had some questions come up around that. And I think the answer there is that the intention behind this program is to have an artist or maximum two artists have the experience of being embedded in our organization. And so it really sort of comes to that that component of the program. And so we're limiting kind of main artists to a maximum of two because we think that that will create the best experience of being able to form a close relationship with our organization, form close and work really sort of closely and directly with us, and be able to have that experience of being embedded in the work that we're doing. And so it feels like that limit of two allows us to do that in the most sort of intentional way. That being said, when we sort of get to the implementation phase, if you want to allocate some of that budget toward building out a team that will work on the project, that's definitely acceptable. So the intention is for there to be maximum two primary artists who would be the people who are going through the whole residency program. But if in order to implement the project, it requires working with a team and it feels like it fits within the budget, then that's definitely acceptable. So that's sort of the reasoning behind that limit. And I would say we've had some questions that sort of get at, I wonder, is it better if I apply as two people, or is it better if I apply as one person? And I would say we don't have sort of strong preference between one person or two. I think what we have a strong preference for is you sort of articulating how you work best. And if you're a really dynamic duo, a great team that works really well as a pair, then I would say we encourage you to sort of put that forward and apply in that way. And if you're a single artist that has a sort of clear experience and clear vision, then we encourage you to apply in that way. But we're not giving preference in terms of the number of artists, whether it's a team of two or a single artist. So those are my FAQs. I think before we go into the questions, I'll just see if other Myra folks on the call have anything that they want to add, and then we can go to questions.
Always on mute. I'm going to add one more FAQ that we've had just because, we've had it from a number of people, is you do have to be eligible to work in the United States. We cannot get a work visa for this project. This, again, being funded by EPA because of the short-term activity of it, you do have to be eligible to work in the United States.
Thanks, Shelley.
Put that out there. And again, you can, contact Isaiah if you have specific questions for your own personal situation. But yeah. And then I did notice there are a couple of folks have already asked questions. Is this a one-time program from a federal grant? The NEA, and EPA is saying it's a pilot program, but yes, at this point, we just have 1 year for this. And then as far as insurance for activities, so somebody had a great question about would Myra be, have the liability insurance? So for that community engaged art, yes, Myra does carry liability, and we do carry that insurance for those events. Will you have office hours for questions while we're putting the proposal together? Uh, that's a great, I would say just email Isaiah. I don't think we'll have specific, but he has been fabulous about responding or getting, sometimes if we don't get back to you immediately, a couple questions have flummoxed us. So we've actually gone back to NEA or the EPA to say, okay, what about this? But we will be responding to questions, and we will be, as we are getting closer to that deadline, holding time in our days to make sure that you do get a response. Um,
And if I'm realizing if that question was about like during the onboarding phase as the project is being generated, then yeah, we would be meeting with the artist regularly during that phase, as we're putting together the proposal for the actual project implementation. Um,
oh, that's great. Right. I read it as before the application, but yes, if it was.
mhm. All right, I'm gonna go to questions, and I see Elizabeth has their hand up.
Hi, my name's Liz Noble. Thank you so much for the presentation. My question is really about the program that's across the United States. I'm curious if in the early phase and then again in the um, during the project phase, if there's an expectation from the federal government that there's going to be some cross-pollination or roundtabling between the other watersheds and what the your organization plans on doing with that. I think that seems like also an exciting component. So I'm curious about that.
Yeah, that's a great question. So we've been talking with folks at EPA and NEA. I would say there is some intention for there to be cross-pollination across the regions. The extent and the form that that will take, I think, unless other folks can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it's not entirely clear at this stage. But we will keep folks updated as we learn more about the shape that that will take. Um, so yeah, so
Yeah, I
that's
think they were super excited about doing that, and I think there was talk about bringing folks together. They're also realizing that 6 watersheds, 6 very different ways of doing things. And so, yes, I think at first it was like, we'll meet monthly. And now it's like, well, wait a minute. But they do want to learn. I would say NEA and EPA really do want to learn from these artists, and really want to learn from this experience. So there will be something. Um,
Thanks so much.
thank you. I see Tiandra.
Yes, hello, Tiandra. I had a question about internally how much of the team would be interacting with the artist. So I think you mentioned a 20-person team and that the artist would be doing a co-creation process. So how many people within that team have capacity to engage with this project, or is it everybody, a smaller subset?
Great question. So I would say the 3 people that are on the call right now, that is myself and Shelly and Sushant. We are sort of we're kind of taking the lead on organizing this project. So we are the people that you would be interacting with the most. And I think Shelly would be this person's direct supervisor, or this person's direct, I guess, because wouldn't be fully on our staff. So what's the right word? Direct point of contact person, lead for artist, yeah, lead contact for this project and for the artists working under them. And then there would be interaction with everyone else on the team. I would say to the extent that uh, I think we would hope that to give the artists the opportunity to engage with those different program areas that I had laid out before. And our team members are sort of working in those program areas. And so I think in the context of giving the artist an opportunity to learn about our water quality work and our water quality monitoring, you would be interacting with our water quality team. Having the opportunity to learn about parks and greenways, you'd be interacting with our greenways program manager. And I think to some extent, we want to hear from you about what are the components that you're most interested in. And I think you would be interacting with those folks a little bit more. But I think the sort of process would be guided by Shelley and Sushant and myself. Does that make sense? Thank you. All right, I see Johanna.
Yeah, thanks. Hi, I'm Johanna. My question is about the the results, what the final project is going to be. Could you speak a little bit to what you're looking for in terms of accessibility to the public? Does it need to be something that's outside or in a public building where people can interact with the project, on a daily basis? Just speaking to that a little bit. Is it an indoor project, outdoor project, a time sensitive project, the end result?
It's a great question. And I would say there, like many components of this, there's some flexibility there. I get one thing I can say is that, and this is maybe in some ways a limitation, but in some ways a fun component of figuring this out is that we don't have a specific site that is dedicated for this project. And I think some of the implementation would involve if it is a project that's needs to be housed at a specific site, identifying a site and figuring out how to actually implement that. And so I think that's something that we would be hashing out a little bit in the onboarding and exploratory phase. To sort of answer your question more directly, the intention is to have it be accessible to the public. I think that there is some flexibility on exactly what that looks like. Does it have to be outdoors? I think no. Uh, but I think it has to be accessible to the public in some way. And man, I wish I could give you a harder answer. I feel like I'm giving
I
a bit of
would
a
say it
soft.
has to be
Yeah,
accessible. I think EPA was pretty strict on accessible. That
yeah.
doesn't mean outside, but it has to be accessible. Yeah. So, I mean, again, I think we could defend some of it with, but the intent is accessibility.
Yeah.
Also would like to add accessibility and the community engagement part was given a more weight to the program.
Right.
Yep.
And so there has to be both sort of whatever final product comes out of the implementation needs to be accessible to the community, but also the community needs to be involved in the creation process as well.
And I think you also had a time frame question, and so it really it would have to be within, what did we say, May 2025, and that's just, or 2026. Oh my gosh, getting my years wrong. That's just
years.
captured within this term of the grant.
I see Mary.
Was next.
Hi, my name is Mary Germanis, and thank you for holding this session. I'm wondering, because there wasn't exactly space like on the questions are so generative. I'm just wondering if we should write a little bit about what we're thinking, if we have sort of thoughts about how we would go about it, or if that's sort of for the next phase of the project and what you guys are thinking.
That's a great question. I think the way that we had sort of conceived of the application process is that this sort of first stage of applications is for us to have an opportunity to get to know you all as artists and how you approach your artistic practice more generally, and less around sort of specifics for what this project that we're working on might actually look like. And I think I think our hope would be to get into that a little bit more in the second round, but then honestly mostly in the onboarding. And so I think this round is sort of, we want to hear about your artistic practice, your past experience. Next round would be diving a little bit further into past experience and how you approach community engagement, and then maybe a little bit about vision. But then I think the vision would really come out of the onboarding phase is how we've conceived it at this point. And I think that's partially because we want to do that sort of visioning collaboratively, and partially because we also want to sort of respect that doing that visioning is work for folks, you know, and I think would our hope would be also that would happen in the context of the program itself. So I hope that's helpful. I think if there are ways that you want to sort of gesture toward what your vision might be within the context of the questions that we're asking, I think that would be all right. But I think really we're just trying to get to know generally about your artistic practice. Does that make sense?
Totally. Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you. All right, next I see Jesse.
Hi there. I have a couple of questions sort of about Myra and how you all might be able to work with the artist or artists. Is the staff multilingual?
Good question. So yes, and not all of our staff is multilingual.
Oh, right, of course, but
yes. So we have some staff who are multilingual, yeah, I guess maybe I'll put it back on you. And so what are you envisioning there?
well, just making sure that when we talk about community and accessibility, that if the artists themselves don't have a number of languages under their belt, that there could still be some work done
Yes.
with the communities. I mean, I know that there's a lot of Spanish-speaking community on the watershed. Some of us speak Spanish, not everyone does. So those kinds of things.
Absolutely. So we do have some capacity to do that. We also work with translators a lot for some of our outreach as well. Yes, so there's capacity there. But I also, I think maybe I'll sort of admit to the fact that it is an area of growth for us, you know.
And then also sort of somewhat related, given that Myra is acknowledging the indigeneity of the land or sort of the populations, has there been any outreach to sort of the tribes that are in the watershed for their input?
You know, that's a great question. Shelley, when we did our initial outreach, did we send anything to the tribes?
Yeah, we've shared it with them, but because again, we have there's been no restrictions. But yes, we have shared with the contacts that we have in the watershed.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Nope, it's a great question.
Mary, is it a new question? I see you still have your hand up.
Oh no, so sorry. Just
No worries. All right, then we'll go to Claudia.
Hi, I'm sorry. I'm never on my phone with this. I had two questions. One was because I remember reading, so the main office is in Arlington, is that right? The
Yes,
Myra
that's
office?
correct.
Yeah. And I'm just curious, is there going to be a dedicated space? I'm just thinking that, things might accumulate, or there might be certain things that might be good to be left up in the office, or just things accumulate. And yeah, so
That's a great question. So I would say the general answer is yes. Like we would be able to provide a desk within our office. Are we able to provide studio space?
Or like a
No.
wall.
A wall. I kind of, my instinct is I don't see why not.
Okay, so there's flexibility.
Yes, there's some flexibility there. I think we had envisioned a desk, and I think I kind of don't see why not. We could why we wouldn't be able to have a desk and a wall.
Okay, thank you. And my other question was, I was just curious because I guess there's 6 watersheds, which it's very exciting that the EPA is doing this. And did Myra apply to be one of the 6, or how did you guys get hooked up with this?
Shelley, do you want to take that
So
one?
I can jump into that. We are very lucky because we are an urban, oh my God, Sushant, you should tell me what it is. An urban.
It's an urban waters federal partnership location, which is a partnership of all the federal agencies in the watershed. And this is how my program is funded as well, the Urban Waters Ambassador Program. And the EPA has piloted those locations where the ambassadors are located and where the fundings are already being channeled.
Oh, okay, that's
And the
really cool.
urban waters are generally environmental justice, either, so again, I think they tried to pick these communities and fund the money. And then we did apply within that smaller pocket. But EPA did want to target it towards this group that they had already identified, that were working in areas that, yeah,
Thank you so much.
water
you.
quality and environmental justice issues.
All right, next is David. David, I think you're on mute if you.
There we go. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Excellent. There's a mention of engaging with the community, and actually the watershed has many communities, be it schools, environmental organizations, diverse populations. So could you just define what you mean by community, please?
Another great question. So definitely, yes, want to emphasize what you highlighted there, which is that there are indeed many communities, 21 municipalities. Oh gosh, how many languages spoken? Many. We have it in a slide somewhere, and different, huge variety of socioeconomic and all other sort of diversity. And I think, and the question is around, how do you do community engagement? Will it be more focused or will it be more general? And I think we are still, I think, working out exactly what the community engagement in the onboarding phase would look like. And part of it would come from getting to know the artist and getting to know what their interests are and being able to direct them to communities. And maybe even specific locations within the watershed, whether it's a specific town or a specific neighborhood that they're most interested in, and leveraging the connections that we already have as an organization within those different communities. And so I think it wouldn't be, I guess it wouldn't be general. I think there would be specificity, but I think that specificity would come from conversations with the artists that we select and what they're interested in, and if they have sort of priorities. And I also think that there's an opportunity in the onboarding to get to know various different communities, and then for the implementation, maybe to focus in as you learn about the various different communities across the watershed.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Anyone else at Myra have things to contribute to that question? All right, great. I'm not seeing any other hands. I did see there was a question in the chat, which was, is it possible to do multiple projects over the course of the residency, provided that they stay within the allotted budget? Am I missing somebody? Well, I'll just quickly say that yes, there's an opportunity to do multiple projects within the budget. And I'm seeing perhaps Jane has a question. Jane, are you able to unmute? I think maybe there's having some trouble. Oh, Jane, I can't hear you. I think you're on mute, and I can only click ask to unmute. I can't manually unmute you myself. Do you see anything that's popping up around unmuting yourself? No. Let's see. Trying to see if there's anything that I can do on my end to help with that.
Oh, you're
Oh,
unmuted.
there you go.
Yes,
Fantastic.
you did. I had a hard time getting on, and I'm using my iPad, and it didn't quite work out properly. I can't even find the chat, to tell you the truth. So
That's all right.
I have probably a silly little question, which is, people are talking as if there is an application, and I have not seen one. Where is that?
Well, I can definitely, if you have your email address, I can send it to you directly.
Yes.
but you can also, you can find it. I'll send a link in the, you haven't been able to find the chat, but if you go to mysticriver.org and you click
Okay, wait.
on, let me know when you're ready.
I'm ready.
All right, so if you go to mysticriver.org, there should be a Get Involved tab. And
I've seen it. Yes.
yeah, and if you go to Jobs, you'll see in under Job Opportunities, it'll say Mystic River Artist in Residence. And
Okay, great.
there's a little link there that you can use to sign up. But if you have an email, I think I actually probably should have your email from your registration. I can follow up directly with you to give you that link.
Great. And I have one other question, and it's another
Absolutely.
funny little question. But there was something a few years ago that was a wonderful, it was a bunch of signs all in around, excuse me, the Mystic River. And I loved it. And I was wondering if this was a part, somehow generated that. There was music, there was poetry. I learned a lot.
Was Sound on the Mystic, and that was an independent project. Yeah. Nope, that was
oh boy, that was fabulous.
Interestingly enough, we did support that group of artists that did it, but they really led it. And I think Gary, oh, I can't remember, they were out of Medford. But yes, they were independent. It was fabulous. It was a really neat project. We were able to support them.
Good.
But they really did it all.
Yeah. It was great.
Yep.
Okay, that's the quick questions I had. Yeah.
See another question in the chat. Do you want the art statement and the bio combined, separate, about a page? And do we want a resume or a CV? So I think in terms of what we're asking for the artist statement and the bio, I think that can be combined. And I think 1 to 2 pages is fine for that. And then in terms of resume and CV, we haven't asked for that. I think what we've asked for is work samples and then a page that goes over the work samples. So I think we're imagining that sort of previous work will be covered by choosing some works that you want to highlight and writing about those, and in the artist statement and the bio. So ultimately, no to resume and CV.
Unless that's how you have your artist statement and bio, then that's fine.
I see a hand from May.
If your bio, yeah.
Oh, hey, I'm May. Just a quick question. Sorry if I missed it, but who is the selection committee?
I meant to
And
put that in the
also,
FAQ. It's a great question. Yes.
And then also, like, if there's any like how are you grading our applications? Like, what's more important than other things, or should I just sort of be? I didn't know if you had like a formal rubric or something that you should know about.
Good question. So we will have a selection committee. It's going to be made up of members of our staff, and there will be at least, is it 2 or 3 community members, Shelley? I think it's 3. Yeah. So 3 community members that we've gotten in touch with from different areas throughout the watershed, and then a few local arts folks will also join the committee to bring some arts expertise. So that's the committee that we'll choose, and they'll be making the decision in both rounds of the application. But we at Mystic River will have the ultimate sort of final say. So we're using the committee to sort of guide the process. They'll be able to vote on the applications, but ultimately we will be the ones who are making the final decision and onboarding the artist. And then the other question was about oh gosh, what was it about?
The decision matrix. Like,
Oh, the
do we
decision
have a
matrix.
written formal decision like, or
Yeah.
scoring rubric?
And so I would say we're developing our written scoring rubric, but what we'll be basing it off of is those sort of what we're looking for, bullet points that we have in the RFQ, which were hold on just a second. I think it's more or less what I had in the in the presentation, which is looking for folks who are eligible to work in the United States, able to commit sort of as kind of logistical parameters, but then experience in creating community engaged art, experienced working in and with communities and interested in the environment and sustainability and the work that we do, able to independently travel in the watershed, experienced managing the implementation of creative projects and managing budgets. Yeah, those are sort of the factors that we'll be using, and I would definitely say, while we're establishing sort of this ultimate formal rubric that we'll be using, we are definitely sort of putting a real emphasis on the community engagement component. That's a central element of this residency. Are there any other questions, comments, clarifications? All righty. Well, we're happy to continue to stay on if folks, if there's anything that comes up. But if not, it's almost 7 o'clock, so you all are more than welcome to continue with the meeting. And yes, we will share the recording, and I'll make sure that it gets to everyone who registered for this meeting, and we'll also post it online. And thank you all so much for being here.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Thanks.
you. Right.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
I missed it. You.
Thank you. And we'll stay on as people leave.
Thank you so much. Nice to see you guys.
Yes. Hey, Carolyn. Nice to see you.
Yay, I love that this is such an awesome program. You guys are awesome.
I know. Oh, you have a partner.
Yes. Nico was like, turn the camera on.
Ah, that's pretty fun.
Sorry.
I love it.
No.
Thank you.
Have a good rest of your day.
Bye.
So Myra folks, I do have a slightly specific question. Just, do you have a list either online or just sort of in the offices of what the most invasive species are that you're sort of aware of and dealing with?
Not read.
We don't. I mean, I can tell you, invasive bittersweet, phragmites, water chestnuts, and what's the other one that
Knotweed.
the monarch
Jane-
butterfly always?
Knotweed,
Knotweed,
Jane
thank
keeps
you.
saying, yeah.
Yeah. Sorry.
All right. Okay. So those are the ones. I mean, when you just sort of generally ask online, those are the things that are talked about as of invasive in some of the different watersheds up here. So that makes sense.
Yeah, and our focus is
We're
like
consistent with everybody else.
Yeah, and when we do our volunteer programs, it's sort of we use what's most invasive, but we also have to consider like what can volunteers actually remove. So we don't have a knotweed removal formal program because that really requires more hardcore removal methods because it's so aggressive.
Cool.
We also there's other things like what's the porcelain berry? That's another one, which is a vine. It looks like a wild grapevine, and it climbs up trees. And yeah.
Cool. Interesting. All right. Thank you all very much. This was
Good
great.
night.
Yes.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, God. Okay.
Great job, Isaiah.
Thank you. Liliana, are you still on? Do you have any questions? All right, I'm gonna remove her.
Awesome.
Awesome.
All right,
Great
great.
participation. Wow, great
Oh, we
question.
should stop the recording.
Oh, yep.